Alright, hey everyone. So today we're going to change out the A-arms on this truck. Now, this is a pretty simple process, and realistically speaking, I probably don't need to make a video on this, but I'm going to. For one, because it'll be nice to have the content on the channel. But for two, there's new people coming into this hobby all the time. And if somebody breaks one of these, there are people out there who don't trust themselves enough to do it. I used to be one of them. To a certain extent, I still am kind of untrustworthy of myself. Certainly when it comes to like building engines, like what I did with my Baja. But this is something that's very simple, doesn't take a lot of know-how, and just to kind of, for one, like I said, get content on the channel, but for two, just to assure people that this is not something they should be afraid of doing, right? You don't have to send this truck off and have somebody do this for you. You don't have to be afraid of hurting the truck by doing this. There's also situations, like where parents, right? If their kid owns one of these, the parent sometimes may not let the kid take it apart. Certainly if their kid is how I was when I was growing up. Because I took everything apart. And the problem was, most of the time I never put it back together. So, I know there's some parents out there who, wouldn't want that happening. Certainly not with a $500 or $600 truck, depending on what you've bought and how much you've spent. So, just a bit of an educational video here on how to change A-arms. We're going to do one, and then we're going to time-lapse the other three. So, this is pretty simple. This is on a Traxxas / 4x4, but most trucks are pretty similar in this regard. Most of them have hinge pins, which are exactly what they sound like. They're these pins that are a hinge for your A-arm. It's what holds it into the chassis. And most of this is very easy and very simple. This is routine maintenance. That's all this is. So, yeah. Again, we're going to do one and time-lapse the other three. Once you get that bumper off, you've got these pins here. All you got to do is take a pair of pliers and pull that pin out. It's insanely simple on this particular truck. There are other trucks out there that are more complicated, of course, but for this one, pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and get this this front brace off. It's just another single screw there. It'll make it a little easier to get a hold of that hinge pin. Yeah, this is pretty simple. And again, there's really no need for me to have it on this channel. But, like I said, good for content and good for showing people how to get this done. Be a good time to roll your hinge pins across the table and make sure they're not bent as well. These are cheap replacements, right? These don't cost much unless you're going with something crazy like titanium or something like that. But for bashing, I don't know why you would. So now we gotta undo the shock, and I'm running Stampede arm guards, so I'm gonna have to undo those as well. But the actual arm itself at this point is free now. It's no longer attached. And that's all there is. There's another screw here. If you're not running arm guards, you just have to detach the shock and you're good to go. Put the new one on, put it back together. It's not hard. This is something literally anybody with even 5 minutes of working on these things can do. It's very simple, very self-explanatory. That's not a Phillips head like I thought it was. Those hinge pins, as you've seen, they can be a little stubborn to get out sometimes. Sometimes you may need to put a pair of needle nose on them and just kind of use the back of a screwdriver to get them out. I've had to do that many times. Now we got two bolts here. One is for the arm guard and one is for the bottom mount on the suspension. So, for simplicity's sake, we're not going to reconnect the arm guard or lower suspension until we get the A-arm back connected to the truck. Because if you connect, I mean, the arm guard would probably be fine, but if you connect the suspension to it, what happens is you run into an issue where on some trucks it can be difficult to get everything lined up because your shock is fighting you, trying to push against you and everything. There we go. Old RPM arm off. And we're going with Traxxas heavy duty arms because, as I've stated before, this is going to be a 4S slash when I'm done. Tekno does not recommend using their drive shafts with RPM arms. Now, I have been doing it with no problems, but I've also been running this as a fairly slow truck on 2S with a relatively small system. What I'm about to do to this thing, I want the arms a little stiffer so that they don't twist and cause problems with these drive shafts. That is, if these drive shafts will even hold up to it. I've been told that they will, but in all honesty, I don't know. Little hint with your drive shaft, with your A-arms. Sometimes this can be a little tricky because not all A-arms are built the same. But if you see something like this, how it comes down, that's going to go towards the bottom. It gives room for your drive shaft to come through without contacting this. So make sure that you have these the right orientation. So this one is going to go over here, correct? Because the shock comes down and meets up with it. So that one goes there. You're going to go ahead and hammer this hinge pin back in. And yes, sometimes you do have to hammer it back in. That one actually went in real easy. And we're going to reconnect the outer part here. If you want a closer look at that pin, I don't know why you would need a closer look, but that's it right there. It's that little pin that holds your hub carrier out here to the A-arm. So again, it's pretty self-explanatory. You don't really need a close-up shot of that, but just in case you're worried about taking out the wrong thing, there you go. There we go. That's your new A-arm on, basically. All you got to do is reconnect the shock, and if you're using an arm guard, put the arm guard back on, and your front bumper, and all of that good stuff. So we're going to go ahead and start this time lapse now, and we'll take a look at the truck, how it sits with new A-arms, or how it looks with new A-arms after the time lapse is over. So y'all enjoy. All right, on to the back. So I'm not going to time lapse this part because just to show you how to get the rear bumper off, it's pretty simple. You've got 2 screws here, and then you've got another screw, another 2 up top here, and then this whole piece just slides out. So, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. I guess I will time lapse that as well. But on to the back. That's going to bother the crap out of me if I don't fix it. That's just going to ignore it, but my OCD. So the rear shocks on these slash platforms are actually longer than the front, which means if you move them in to the same hole as the front, you get more travel in the rear. So that's what I did there, and these actually need to be all the way out. So let me fix this real quick, because if I don't, it's going to drive me nuts. All right, so just a little bit of information for you. I still got to put the bumpers back on, but y'all don't necessarily have to see that. These screws right here, right? You've got one here, and even the screws down here in the bottom, all of this area. If you put screws in here that are too long, your differentials sit in these cases here. I have had it happen on some truck. I don't think it was this one, but it may have been one of my other rigs, where this screw, I chose one that was too long, and it went straight through the diff and touched the differential. So once you get done taking this apart and putting it all back together, take it and make sure that everything still spins freely and that you're not hanging up on nothing, all right? Because it will happen. I've had it happen. It is a well-known problem with a bunch of different models, not just the slash 4x4, but a bunch of different models. If you use screws that are too long around the diff area, you can lock up your diff with those screws. So keep that in mind. And I guess take a couple of pictures of this thing with the A-arms on it, and that'll be the end of the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.